Chapter 2, Planning a Healthy Diet. So Chapter 1 explained nutrients and how food choices over time can increase or decrease health. Poor choices increase the risk for chronic diseases, and good choices can support overall health. Chapter 2 discusses how to select foods and create a meal pattern to create a balanced diet to meet both energy and nutrient needs. These are your Chapter 2 learning objectives. Diet planning principles. These are the 6 diet planning principles we'll review over the next few slides. You will likely see some of these on exam 1. Principles and guidelines. The first being adequacy. We're looking at sufficient energy and adequate nutrients. Adequacy ensures you get enough of the nutrients and energy you need. Balance. Enough, but not too much of different food types. Balance. You need different foods to provide different nutrients. Examples. So meat might provide a good amount of iron, but it's low in calcium. And then you have milk, which is higher in calcium, but low in iron. So you need both in the diet. Calories or energy control. So energy in equals energy out. So if you're eating, let's say 1,500 calories and you burn 1,500 calories in a day, you'll maintain your weight. If you eat 1,800 calories and are still only burning 1,500, then you may gain weight. If you eat 1,200 calories and burn 1,500 calories, then you would lose weight. So you want to manage your food energy intake. Nutrient density. The most nutrients for the least food energy. So more nutrients and fewer calories equals higher nutrient density. You want to have a good understanding of this because I will say it frequently, nutrient density, and it'll just be helpful for your own dietary choices. You want to limit empty calorie foods as they contribute energy or calories but lack vitamins, minerals, and protein. Examples include things like potato chips, soda, and candy. Moderation, so occasional versus regularly eaten foods. You want to have enough but not too much of a substance. It helps contribute to adequacy, balance, and calorie control. Consider solid fats and added sugars. So eating too much solid fats and added sugars can lead to unintended weight gain. You should only be having these once in a while. Variety. Improves nutritional adequacy. Choose foods among and within food groups. So you want to eat a wide selection of foods within each food group. Eat more than just apples, let's say, when you're looking at your fruit category. You want to eat berries and melons, bananas, etc. Eat more than just carrots. You want to have broccoli, tomatoes, spinach, potatoes. So you want to be eating different color foods, different types of foods. So again, choosing foods among and within the food groups. Nutrient density of 2 breakfast options compared. So which one of these do you think is more nutrient dense? And can you explain why? So you can see that breakfast A is the more nutrient dense option. It has more protein, it's going to have more fiber, carbohydrate choices, versus the nutrient poor breakfast, which you see it looks like black coffee, which is going to have almost no calories. It doesn't have the cream and sugar in there, but then the donuts will provide a lot of sugar, but it's not very nutrient dense because you don't have protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. So option A would be the better option here. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans is an evidence-based document used to develop federal food, nutrition, and health policies and programs. The 2015 to 2020 dietary guidelines are evidence-based and they translate nutrient recommendations into food recommendations. They are reviewed and revised every 5 years. Key guidelines for the Dietary Guidelines for Americans follows through a healthy eating plan throughout the lifespan, and it focuses on variety, nutrient density, and amounts. You want to limit empty calories, so sugars and saturated fat, and reduce sodium. Choose healthier foods and beverages, and support healthy eating patterns. So this supporting of healthy eating patterns could be both at school or at work and even at home. Key recommendations include a variety of vegetables, choosing whole fruits, whole fruits versus juice, choosing whole grains versus refined, as well as low-fat dairy and a variety of protein sources. Diet planning guides. So the USDA food patterns. You have 5 major food groups, which include your fruits, vegetables, grains, protein foods, as well as milk and milk products. If you've ever seen My Plate, that has a spot for all 5 of those categories. Recommended daily amounts for each group. You want to select from each group daily, and the recommended amount will vary based on calorie needs. Age, gender, activity level will also influence caloric needs. So 5 major food groups, first being fruit, then you see vegetables, and vegetables actually have 5 subgroups based on color, nutrient, and starch content, and you want to choose a variety from each group. So the subgroups include dark green, orange and deep yellow, legumes, starchy vegetables, and other. Legumes actually are considered both a vegetable and or a protein, and examples include lentils, soybeans, kidney beans, pinto beans, peanuts, etc., because they are low in fat and rich in nutrients and fiber. Protein also has subgroups, and those include seafood, meats, poultry, and eggs, nuts, seeds, and soy products. Again, choose different sources from an assortment of different fats and amino acids, grains, milk and milk products, or a dairy category. This chart breaks down the servings of food groups based on calorie needs. Milk and milk products is the only category that does not change. USDA food patterns, so fruits and vegetables. So fruits, they encourage you to consume whole fruit versus the juice, and you want to limit fruits that are canned in syrup. Vegetables, with an emphasis on choosing a variety from the 5 subgroups and limiting those that are canned in salt. Grains, choosing whole grains wherever possible. The goal is for at least half of your grain choices to be whole grain. You can do things like choosing brown rice as opposed to white rice, or having breads that are made from whole grain or whole wheat. Reading food labels can help you with that as well. Protein, choose a variety of protein sources. You want to limit breakfast meat, things like bacon or sausage, fattier meats, lunch meat, etc. Those can be high in saturated fat, especially the more processed they are, and lunch meats and things like that tend to be higher in sodium as well. For your milk and milk products, you want to choose low fat or fat-free options. If you don't drink milk or consume dairy, you just want to look for calcium-rich foods. There's also fortified juices, cereals, or soy milk, some legumes, almonds, tofu, just to make sure you're getting enough calcium in your diet. As for oils, you want to look for liquid oils like olive or canola and limit overall consumption just to the high caloric density. Discretionary calories. So these are the calories that you choose after you met all of your nutrient needs for the day, but still need additional calories. So once you have those discretionary calories, you can choose more nutrient dense foods, or you can treat yourself to a dessert or alcohol if you're of age. It's basically the point where you got all of your nutrients in that you need, and you just need the additional calories to meet your needs for that day. I encourage you to pause this presentation momentarily and see if you can answer the questions before I reveal the answers. Serving equivalents. So just for personal knowledge, fruits, vegetables, and milk gets measured in cups. Grains and protein foods are usually measured in ounces. Ethnic food choices. So we'll talk about next on the few slides. Some cultures eat certain foods while others do not. You can still absolutely get adequate nutrients following different dietary patterns. The Vegetarian Food Guide. So you can use the USDA Healthy Vegetarian Eating Patterns, and that's just to help those people who choose not to consume meat. And then you have mixtures of foods, which are things like casseroles, soups, sandwiches, and that's basically when you're consuming a mixture of different food groups at one time. So ethnic food choices. So this is the Asian example from the textbook. So I won't go into too much detail here, but milk and milk products are oftentimes excluded. You would get calcium from other foods within the dietary plan. For example, some dark green vegetables, tofu, soybeans, etc. So you can see kind of what that dietary pattern looks like. And then you have the Mediterranean. So the Mediterranean diet is often regarded as one of the healthiest eating patterns. There is no specific exclusion, but it does include fish and heart-healthy fats with a good balance of vegetables. MyPlate. MyPlate is used as an educational tool, and they do have a website that allows for personal planning. It's a good educational resource if you're interested. It looks similar to a placemat for easier visualization. So seeing that, half of your plate you'd like to be fruits and vegetables, getting enough grains in your diet as well as protein. It just helps you get a better sense of putting a meal together. And this replaced the food pyramid, if you remember that. Some shortcomings for MyPlate, they do have a lack of detail and distinction between healthier choices within food groups. Recommended and actual intakes compared. So you might not know the answers to these two questions, but I encourage you to pause it momentarily and take your best shot at answering them. Putting the plan into action. So here's an example of putting a meal plan into action. So you can see breakfast, you have the amounts. So if in this example, the goal would be to have 1 ounce of whole grains, 1 cup of milk, and a half cup of fruit, putting that together would be, choosing a whole grain cereal, choosing fat-free milk, and having a sliced banana. You can see there, they have a recommended number of servings of fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy based on your calorie recommendations. And this helps kind of translate those food group recommendations into specific food items. And you can see that this slide is a continuation of the last one. Grocery shopping. So when grocery shopping, consider the foods you enjoy and normally purchase. Can you make any healthy swaps? So with grains, you can look for whole grain products. Um, so choosing whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, again, brown rice versus white rice, things like that. So it's not that you're totally eliminating that item from your meal list or meal plan. It's just that you're looking for a healthier version of that. For milk and milk products, you want to remember to look for lower fat options and avoid ones that are higher in sugar. Things like chocolate milk or kids yogurt tend to be very high in sugar. protein foods, so lean meats and soy. You want to be mindful of your portion sizes. And when it comes to protein foods and your cooking techniques, like with your meat and seafood options, you just want to make sure you prepare the food adequately. You want to make sure it's cooked to the right temperatures. This way you don't get any sort of foodborne illness. You can also prepare foods in different ways. You can bake them, grill them, broil, etc. When it comes to vegetables, you can have fresh versus canned or frozen. And canned or frozen will still provide nutrients, but you want to avoid those that are canned in salt. And again, always choosing a variety of different vegetables. When it comes to fruits, like vegetables, you want to consume all different types. If you've ever heard the expression to eat the rainbow, not in reference to Skittles, but in terms of your fruits and vegetables, making sure you're eating plenty of different colors in your diet. You want to avoid fruits that are canned in syrup because they'll have too much sugar. And then whole fruit is recommended to consume versus, let's say, a juice, just because it provides that fiber, can help fill you up. It slows your body's digestion a little bit more, so it gets better absorption, or slower absorption, I should say. This slide here is on the wheat plant, and it's an introduction to the grains. So a wheat plant contains bran, endosperm, germ, and husk. Depending on how broken down the wheat plant is, determines whether it's a whole grain or it helps determine how whole or how refined the grain itself is. Nutrients in bread. So this image compares the amount of B vitamins and other nutrients present in whole grain versus enriched versus refined breads. You can see whole grain is even more nutritious than enriched bread. So grains. I'd like you to be able to understand and define these four types of grains or definitions. These are terms that you'll find in the text, and I hope that you'll be familiar with these, as you'll likely see at least a question or two about it on your exam. So refined grains, basically the coarse parts of the wheat are removed, leaving only the endosperm. Enriched grains, so these are nutrients lost during processing, end up getting added back into the final product. Fortified foods, so these are nutrients that were either never in the food originally or were there in insignificant amounts, and then they get added into the food product. Whole grain products, they are not refined, and it maintains its endosperm, germ, and husk in appropriate proportions. Back to from guidelines to groceries. So referring to your protein sources, so you have seafood, meats, poultry, eggs, legumes, soy products, nuts, and seeds. They provide minerals, protein, vitamin E, and your B vitamins. You want to choose lean cuts of meat, maybe either round or loin, and remove the skin from poultry. When you prepare meats, you want to remove that the skin of the meat and trim visible fat. You can bake, broil, or grill, or braise meats. Dairy. So dairy foods are often fortified with vitamins A and D. Look for skim or low-fat milk products to cut back on saturated fat consumption. Food labels are found virtually on all packaged foods, and it will include information such as the ingredient list, serving size, and nutrient quantities. The FDA has revised food labels to make it easier for consumers to read and understand. The ingredient list. Foods with more than one ingredient must contain an ingredient list, and it's in descending order of predominance by weight. So the first ingredient is what it's made the most out of. So again, descending order of predominance by weight. So the first ingredient you see on that food label is what it's made the most of. Serving sizes. So based on amounts of foods and beverages that people are actually eating, not necessarily what they should be eating. So for example, now a can of soup will contain nutrition facts as if you ate the whole can. And it will also will include information per serving and per package information. If a food provides 2 to 4 servings, it will break that down for you as well. It allows for comparison among foods. So for example, an ice cream serving size is now about 2/3 cup. This way you can look at 2 different products and compare them a little bit more easily. You need to compare to quantity of food actually eaten. So if you eat half of what the serving size is, you want to cut those numbers in half as far as like calories, protein, carbohydrate, fat, whatever it is you're looking at on the food label. If you're only eating half of what that serving size is, then you can cut those numbers in half. If you eat double or twice the amount, then you want to double the numbers that you're looking at as well. Example of a food label. So this is a comparison. You see on the left, it's the original label, and then on the right, it's the updated label. So serving sizes were adjusted to what people are actually eating. Servings and calories are now bolder and bigger. And you also have a separate listing for added sugar. So the added sugar is good to know for when you have products like smoothies or yogurt that are going to have sugar from fruit. It's better to know whether that sugar came from the fruit that's added in or whether sugar was added into the final product. So that can help distinguish that for you. I encourage you to pause this presentation momentarily, see if you can match these up together. You might not know all the answers, but it is good practice. Front of package labels. So this image is like a snapshot of key information from the nutrition label. It's smaller, quicker, simpler, and people may find it a little bit less overwhelming. And you may or may not see it on packages as it is fully up to the manufacturer whether to put it on there or not. But you would see that on the front of the packaging and it just kind of gives you like a quick snapshot of some key information. Claims on labels. So you have nutrient claims, and that's statements that nutrient claims. So those are statements that characterize the quantity of a nutrient in a food. So reduced, free, or low. Then you have health claims, and those are statements that characterize the relationship between a nutrient or substance in a food and a disease or health-related condition. Health claims require FDA approval. For example, diet low in salt may decrease the risk of high blood pressure. That might be a health claim you would see on a product. And then you have structure function claims, and these are statements that characterize the relationship between a nutrient or other substance in a food and its role in the body. So structure function claims do not require FDA approval. They cannot mention a specific disease or symptom. So they might, for example, say something like promotes a healthy heart. So it's very similar and it can be a little bit misleading. So this here is the highlight section from chapter 2. I decided to keep a little bit of the highlight section in for this chapter as well. And we'll just touch a little bit on vegetarian diets. So vegetarian classifications. Different foods can be excluded from the diet. Vegetarian diets vary, so some exclude red meat only, some exclude poultry or seafood, others also exclude eggs, and some exclude milk and milk products as well. So it's very dependent on the individual and their choices. You also have people who might consider themselves part-time vegetarians or flexitarians, and these people may consume small amounts of meat and seafood. Motivations can potentially include things like religious beliefs, environmental concerns, as well as economic or ethical reasons. In general, vegetarian diets are regarded as healthy when they include a variety of whole grains, fruits and vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds. They typically contain a lot of complex carbohydrates, fibers, vitamins and minerals, etc. So this is some of the types of vegetarianism. So you see that you have the classification. So this top one is lacto-ovo. Lacto regarding milk, ovo, egg. So a lacto-ovo vegetarian can drink milk and can eat eggs. So you see the foods that are included and then foods excluded. Below is lacto. So lacto includes milk only. Then you have ovo vegetarian, and that's when they do consume eggs. And then you have vegan, which is the most restrictive as they do not consume any animal derived food. Alternatives to meat group include things like tofu, soy products, legumes, nuts, nut butters, and seeds. Alternatives to milk group, you have soy milk, which is comparable in nutrient value, almond milk, coconut milk, rice milk, check for nutrient fortification, yogurt, cheese, and ice cream from non-milk or soy sources. Protein complementation. So amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and you have both essential and non-essential amino acids. So your first category, which is the essential ones, are needed or essential from the diet because the body cannot produce them. So you need to eat them to get those specific amino acids. And then you have non-essential amino acids, which means the body can produce them. So you don't necessarily have to get them from the diet. So a complete protein will include all of your essential amino acids. So animal-based proteins, soybeans, quinoa, chia seeds, hemp seeds, buckwheat, and spirulina are complete proteins containing all essential amino acids. Your other plant foods are incomplete proteins. So incomplete proteins do not have all the essential amino acids. Protein complementation continued. So protein complementation allows for adequate, complete, or high quality protein in the diet. So these complementary proteins balance each other and provide all essential amino acids when consumed together. So those include having grain and legumes together, legumes plus nuts or seeds, as well as milk products and grain. So when they come together, they provide all of the essential amino acids. So dietary concerns for vegans. Um, these are just some of the concerns that you would have with someone following a vegan diet. You just want to be very careful and mindful of these, making sure they're getting complete or high quality protein, getting adequate calories, as well as making sure that they are not deficient in vitamin D, vitamin B12, riboflavin, iron, or calcium. Vegetarian diet planning. So dietary planning is key. You need to make sure that all nutrient needs are met, including getting complete proteins, so all of your essential amino acids, getting enough iron, zinc, calcium, and other nutrients listed on the board as well. Food choices and health benefits. So this slide shows how food choices translate into health benefits. So with nutritionally sound vegetarian diets, you may see a decreased risk for chronic disease with decreased intake of red and processed meat, as well as the increased consumption of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. The diet tends to be very rich in fiber, vitamins, and minerals, as long as you follow that balanced diet and get plenty of whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. And overall, this can also lead to better weight management, which decreases inflammation and lowers the risk for disease. Last slide here. I'll give you a moment to see if you can answer. So vegetarian and vegan diets improve health always, never, or when carefully planned. And that concludes chapter 2.